Good morning, everyone. Welcome to today's hearing. We're going to begin today by hearing evidence from, I think, the last of the witnesses who, at the time we're interested in, was employed by Celotex.
Yes.
Yes, Mr. Millett?
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, members of the panel. Yes, that's quite right. So I now call Miss Deborah Berger, please.
Please take the Bible in your right hand and read out the oath.
I swear by Almighty God that the evidence I shall give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Thank you very much. Do sit down, Miss Berger. Make yourself comfortable.
Thank you.
All right? There's some water there if you would like it, and leave it to you to take it when you're ready. Yes, Mr. Millett.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you. Ms. Berger, first of all, can I start by thanking you very much for coming today to the inquiry and helping us with our investigations. We're extremely grateful to you. If you have any difficulty understanding any of the questions I'm asking you, or you want me to repeat them, I'm very happy to either to repeat or to formulate the question in a different way. If you need a break at any time, please let us know. We intend to take a break mid-morning for you and for the shorthand writer. The shorthand writer is sitting to your immediate right, so please do try and keep your voice up so that she can get down what you're saying. And can I just also add to that if you nod or shake your head, that doesn't come out on the transcript.
Okay.
So if you say yes or no, as the case may be, that would be very helpful. Now, you've made a statement to the inquiry dated the 25th of October 2018. Can I show you that?
Yes.
It'll be on the screen in front of you, but it'll also be in the file on the desk in front of you as well if you want to look at the hard copy. But we'll be working together from the screen in front of you, looking at the documents as they come up.
Thank you.
Is that your statement, looking at the first page?
Yes.
Yes, it is.
Yes, and the reference is CEL 30010055 for everybody's benefit. Now, if you go to page 70 in that document, you can see a signature just above the date of the 25th of October 2018. Is that your signature?
Yes, it is.
Have you read this witness statement recently?
Yes, I have.
Now, subject to some corrections that I know you've told us that you would like to make to it, are the contents true?
Yes, they are.
Now, so far as those corrections are concerned, can I take you, please, first of all, to page 93, which is at paragraph 93 at page 29. And you'll see there that you are talking about the report in the second line, the BRE report, and you say there that it was sent to me by Jamie Hayes shortly before our conversation.
Yes.
Would you wish to make a correction to that?
Yes, please.
What is the correction?
On listening to, on reviewing Jamie's evidence, I just wondered if maybe he did send me the report, so we queried it, and John Roper sent me the report.
So the correction you want to make, is this right, is to swap the name of Jamie Hayes out and put the name of John Roper in?
Yes, please.
Right, and we will come to a document in due course which shows that. Similarly, if you go to paragraph 189, which you'll find on pages 50 and 51, and I think we actually pick the passage up on page 51.
Yes.
You say there in the third line, by reference to Jamie Hayes, after he had sent me the 32-page BRE report, I believe he sent me that report on 27th of October, and you go on to say that's because you've seen an email chain. Again, is there a correction you wish to make to that paragraph?
Yes, I believe John Roper sent me the email with the test report attached to it.
So again, is the correction from the identification of Jamie Hayes to the identification of John Roper instead,
Correct.
as the person who sent you that report?
Yes.
Right, thank you. And finally, paragraph 190, if you look at that, just below that, you can see that in that paragraph, you can see 3 lines up from the end of that paragraph, you refer to Jamie Hayes there, and then in the last sentence you say, I had a more detailed conversation with Jamie Hayes after the 32-page report was sent to me on the 27th of October. And just to be clear, again, is that a reference to the 32-page report sent to you, in fact, by John Roper? As you
Yes,
told
it
us?
is.
And so that sentence needs to be read in that light. Is that correct?
Yes, please.
Yes, thank you very much. Now, subject to those corrections, are the contents of this statement true?
To the best of my knowledge.
Thank you. Have you discussed the evidence that you're going to give today with anybody before coming here?
Only with my legal team.
Right. Now you joined Celotex in January 2010, didn't you?
Yes,
And your background was in customer services, am I right?
correct.
And is it right that initially you were employed as a technical services officer?
Yes.
And I don't think you had any technical background though, did you?
No.
So you learnt technical services, as it were, on the job?
Yes.
And is it right that you then took over from Jonathan Roper as product manager on the 1st of October 2014?
Yes.
And before you did that, before the 1st of October 2014, who was your line manager?
Mr. Rob Warren.
Rob Warren. And after you took over the role of product manager, who was your line manager?
Mr. Paul Evans.
Paul Evans. And from October 2014 until you left Celotex in 2018, I think it is, you were a product manager. Is that right?
From 2014?
Yes.
Yes, yes.
To the time you left?
Yes.
Yes. And in that role, is it right that you were responsible for RS 5000 as a product?
Yes.
Yes. Now, I want to ask you one or two questions about your familiarity with approved document B. If you go to your witness statement, which is on the screen at the moment, and go to page 20, let's look together at paragraph 56, underneath the heading Regulations in the Above 18-metre Market. And in that paragraph, you see that you say that your understanding of the applicable regulations were fairly limited and standard. And then you go on to say in the second line, and was derived mainly from training given by Jamie Hayes in around October 2010. And then you refer to a document. Let's look at that document. It's CEL 408500, please. This is the document DB9 which you exhibit. You can see from the first page that it's a draft and is internal and is entitled incorporates buildings above 18 metres, requirements of compliance with fire regulations, technical briefing. And if you go to page 2 of that document, you can see at the top right-hand corner, this is version 2, draft 26th of October 2010, and there are the contents there. Do you remember whether this is a document that was given to all TSOs, technical services officers, at the time?
I think so.
Right. And was it used as part of a seminar or oral presentation exercise?
I think. What do you mean presentation?
Or was it handed out and then somebody spoke about its contents?
I believe so. Yes.
Right.
I think so.
Let's look at page 4. I just want to ask you one or two questions about class 0 and limited combustibility there. Mm-hmm. If you look at page 4, halfway down, you can see that there's a heading, class 0, which has been highlighted, and there's manuscript on that page. Can you identify that manuscript?
The writing is mine.
Is yours?
Yes.
And if we look at class 0, it says, this means that the product has been tested to BS 476 part 7, surface spread of flame, and BS 476 part 6, fire propagation, and achieves a suitable result. The insulation board is therefore defined as class 0 for the purposes of building regulations. And then it goes on after that, non-combustible. It has a heading there. If you go a little bit further down, you can see that there is a list of tests which are tests for non-combustibility.
Yes.
You see that. And then at the very bottom of the page, if we can scroll down to that, please. Underneath those bullet point test lists, it says rigid PIR insulations such as Celotex would not be suitable to be classed as non-combustible materials. And if you look a little bit up the page, you can see that there's class 0 set up above that, as we've seen. Did you understand that there was a difference between class 0 on the one hand and the concept of non-combustible on the other?
No.
You didn't understand?
I accepted they were different.
You accepted they were different?
Yes.
Right, that's what I wanted to ask you.
Yes.
Now, if you look at the handwriting, which you say is yours, you can see, looking back at class naught, there's a reference there to fire propagation with a ring round it, with a line out to the left-hand margin, which says through the product. Do you see that?
Yes.
And then underneath it, you've written EV fire growth, e.g. heat release and ability to accelerate fire growth.
Yes.
Now, what did you mean there by through the product? Do you remember?
No, I don't.
You don't remember?
I really don't, no.
Let's see how far we go with your recollection. Were you told, do you think, that this was the basis on which Celotex marketed its products, namely as class naught throughout?
Are you referring specifically to RS 5000 or?
I'm referring to RS 5000 or FR 5000 as it then was.
I can only recall us talking about the product. RS 5000 is classified to Class O. I'm not sure if I understand that to referring all through the product.
Right.
I don't know.
Now, you can see from the text that there's a reference to surface spread of flame.
Yes.
BS 476 Part 7, surface spread of flame. Do you remember at the time whether you had any doubts about what the phrase class naught throughout actually meant, whether
No.
it had any meaning?
No, I didn't. That's through the product. I understood that RS 5000 is a composite product, whereas it has a foil facer and a foam core. And as far as I was concerned, the surface spread of flame was on the foil facer, and the fire propagation was the product. I didn't separate the core from the facer. I don't think I did.
I see. I'm just trying to get to understand the origin of why it was that you wrote through the product. And did anyone tell you that Part 6 of BS 476, fire propagation, meant that the foam itself was class naught?
I don't recall.
Right.
Sorry.
Now, Jamie Hayes said in his evidence, and that I can show you the transcript, I perhaps ought to. It's Dave 74, page 35, lines 13 to 17. We can just look at that. But the basic point he made in his evidence was that class naught on Celotex's marketing literature was just a marketing proposition and had no technical relevance. And I just want to put that to you. If you look at lines 13 to 17 on that page,
Yes.
the question is at line 10, what would class naught signify to a buyer? What would it allow the buyer to do which, without class naught, it couldn't? And his answer was nothing, I don't believe. I'm not aware of any application that Celotex was offering products into where class naught, or in fact fire performance in general, had any relevancy. So I believe that the giving of the product class naught was solely a marketing proposition. Do you agree with that?
Yes.
Thank you. Now, Mr. Hayes also told us, just a little bit later in his transcript at page 36, and at lines 22 to 25, it's perhaps easier just to show you that. At line 22, the question was, technically speaking, did the concept of class naught throughout the entire product actually have any real meaning? Answer at line 25, no. I can only assume that if you tested something to class naught, you would submit your samples to the test body, they would do whatever tests were correct to do, and so actually to say it's throughout the product is, again, it's just a marketing proposition, I think. Again, Ms. Berger, do you agree with that?
I do.
Thank you. Now, with that background, can I then take you to an email in 2017, February 2017, at CEL 402064, please? And I'd like to show you the bottom of page 2 in that email run, which is an email to you from Joe Mahoney on the 7th of February 2017. And he asks the question, or states, in the product sheet, data sheet, we state, has class naught fire performance throughout the entire product in accordance with BS 476? And if we turn the page, he says, I am sure the wording was chosen carefully, and I know what we are trying to say, but to me, it risks being misleading since the core is not class naught. What do you think? Mm-hmm. And if we then look up, we can see that you answer. And you say to him on page 2, next day, I thought it was class naught, Joe. Isn't it FR? Now, first of all, do you remember what the context was in which he was asking you that question and you were giving him the answer?
I do not.
There weren't. Do you know why he was raising this question with you?
No.
Can we just go back to his email? Did it? He says at the top of the next page, it risks being misleading since the core is not class naught. Did that concern you at the time? Did you begin to be worried that
No,
the marketing literature?
not at all.
Why is that?
I'm aware that after June 14th, 2017, I was aware there was lots of different information coming out of Celotex, and one of them was about Class O, and that was really the first time that I realised there was a problem with the Class O test. I didn't read anything into this email. I didn't think anything about it.
Right.
I really didn't. I just assumed it was something to do with something technical with the product, something to do with, I don't know, lots of different things happened with the product in the development team. I thought it was just something else. I had no idea what he was referring to.
Right. Did it not concern you as product manager at the time that Celotex's marketing literature was at risk of being misleading in this respect?
I'm not sure at the time. I'm not sure at the time I understood it to be misleading.
No, but he did. He thought there was a risk of it being misleading, and I just wanted to know whether, given that Joe Mahoney, who was a senior executive, or certainly senior to you, is
Yes,
that right?
yes.
Given that he thought that the marketing literature risked being misleading since the clause is class naught, I just wondered whether you had any reaction to that and thought that it might be necessary to change the marketing literature so as not to mislead customers.
The classification of the products being Class O is something I wouldn't know how to change. I wouldn't know how to approach that subject with people. I mean, Joe has sent me this email, and I've reviewed it in my evidence leading up to this inquiry. But I'm sorry, I didn't see it as. I either missed the detail in my time reading this email, or it just doesn't register with me as anything.
Right.
It just doesn't register with me.
Right.
I may have just misled. I'm reading that. Sorry, I may have just not. I don't know. I just haven't seen the detail.
Right.
I don't know what happened.
You don't know what happened. Do we take it from that you, although you'd seen this email, you weren't concerned about it at the time sufficiently to raise the matter with your immediate line manager?
I think I should have been. Absolutely, 100%. I'm not. Looking at this detail now, I absolutely, yes. Perhaps I should have been, raising it with my line manager, Mr. Paul Evans. But at the time, it seems that I may have missed this detail, or I didn't feel it was something that I could cope with, or something I could deal with, or something. Perhaps I didn't know how to go about it. I don't know.
Just on that, it sounds as if you're saying that there was some sort of cultural system in Celotex whereby if an employee in your position had discovered that something was wrong and that marketing literature was misleading customers, there wasn't really anywhere you could go with that. Now, that's my reading of what you've just told us. Is that fair, or is that not fair?
I think there have been. I've had two different experiences within Celotex where I've been able to escalate and talk about things which aren't right. And the first time didn't go very well at all. But the second time, there was a product after the Grenfell. There was a product, and I was asked to talk to someone about a complaint on one of the products. And when I saw the complaint, I knew instantly what was wrong with the project and what had happened. And when I shared what I knew with the director, I think the following day the product was taken off the market.
Right.
So that was an experience of where, when I was doing my job and reporting things in, it was being noticed. But
Right.
previously, when I have done my job and reported things in, I don't know, it was just, it was very busy, it was very difficult to, I don't know, it's very difficult to articulate right now.
No, I understand.
Thank
Just
you.
to unpick that a little bit. So this is after the fire.
Yes,
And a complaint had come in about a particular product.
yes.
What was the product?
It was a flat roofing product.
Was it FR 5000 or FR 4000?
I don't know. It wasn't to do with the fire performance of the product. It was another technical detail to do with the product.
And what was the nature of the complaint?
Well, can I say? I mean,
Well,
like, yeah.
yes.
I mean, basically, the roof blew off,
It was
and
what?
the roof blew off in Anglesey.
Right.
And my memory of it today, because it was 3 years ago, so as I recollect it today, there was a problem with how the facer was adhered to the foam on the product, and it wasn't failing. It was failing the tests. It was something I was involved with because we were working towards a BBA certificate, and it was one of the criteria that the facer was attached firmly to the foam. Otherwise, if it was glued down, it could blow off, and that's exactly what happened
Right.
on this particular project. So when I was asked to view it, and I think this was probably early 2017. Early 2018, sorry. When I was asked to view it, I thought, well, I know what's happened there. I think I know what's happened there. And then when I shared it, and then when I shared the story, I actually got a little bit upset because I said it's like RS all over again. And they said, what do you mean? And I said, well, who would I tell? Who do I tell when these things go wrong? And the director at the time said, well, you can tell me.
Who was the director?
It was the finance director. It was a female finance director at the time.
Who was that?
Oh, I can't remember.
Right.
I really can't recall her name. I'm sorry.
Okay.
But anyway,
You said it
the
was
point,
like RS all over again. What do you mean by that?
it was just that there were times when I had tried to talk to. I'd found things out. Things had been shared with me after my post into product management, and I looked after RS 5000. In the first sort of 3 or 4 weeks, really, things were shared with me about the testing of the product. And then when I tried to be honest and open about it and talk to people about it, it didn't really go very far. It didn't go very far.
Okay, we'll come to the detail of that later on, I think, this morning. You said there were, I think, 2 instances where the first one didn't go very well.
That's the one I'm talking about, yeah.
Did you, right, and we will come to the detail, but did you try to escalate your concerns at the time? This is late 2014, I think.
No, I didn't, because I didn't try and escalate my concerns because I didn't know how to, if I'm honest with you. I didn't know, I was very new to the job. I'd never been involved with testing before. I'd never viewed a test certificate before. I was very, very new to the job, and I relied on people around me to really help me with that.
Right. So what was it that didn't go well? You said it the first time it didn't go.
Well, I thought I was doing the right thing by reporting the tweaks I found on the design of the 8414 Part 2 test.
Right.
I thought I was doing my job by reporting those tweaks, by telling Mr. Evans about those, as I remembered them at the time. Yeah, I thought that was news.
Right.
I really did.
What did he say? Do you remember?
I can't remember, if I'm honest.
Right.
I think the emails, I'm not sure, it's the emails that I've used to really jog my memory and bring this all to, into my statement.
No, you say tweaks. You referred the tweaks to him. What's that a reference to?
The things that, some of the things that Mr. Roper revealed to me in the handover, and also some of the things Mr. Hayes revealed to me in the handover.
Right. Okay. Well, we'll come to those very shortly. Just coming back to where we were. I think we can just go to the head of this email run. There's one further question, I think, or set of questions I've got for you on this. he responds to you on the 8th of February on page 1 by saying, yes, but not throughout the product. And you then say at the top, OK, we can discuss later when we meet. Do you remember whether you did have a discussion with Joan
No,
Mahoney?
I really don't.
You don't?
I don't remember.
Now, you can see that the topic or subject matter of this email run is RS fire claims. What was that about? Do you know?
I know in early 2017. I don't know. I don't recall this email specifically, but as I look at this now and I speak to you now about this, I think I do remember in early 2017 we were doing. There was some call from the market for a European fire class. So at that time, the product had only a Class O fire performance. But I think for fire engineers, they wanted, if I remember this correctly, I think fire engineers wanted more information, and as such, the Euro class, we needed to test the product to.
I see.
And I think fire claims. I don't know. I'm trying. I don't know.
Oh, fine.
I think maybe it's to do with that.
Right, but you don't. Okay, you don't know.
I don't know for sure. No, it's
Okay.
not concrete in my mind.
Now, I just want to ask you about the corporate culture at Celotex. We've covered a little bit of that. Can we go to your statement, please, at page 12? And let's look together at paragraph 25. You say there, Saint-Gobain acquired Celotex while I was working there. I felt there were different working cultures as between Celotex and Saint-Gobain, and I think it took a while for the two cultures to bed in together, and that this spanned the build-up to the launch of RS 5000 and continued for some time after that as well. And in the next paragraph, paragraph 26, you say this: I felt that the approach to product development was very different. My understanding of the Celotex approach was along the lines of test, get a pass, launch. In contrast, my understanding was that the Saint-Gobain approach was along the lines of test, pass, fail, learn, retest, pass, fail, learn some more, and launch when 150% certain. In other words, testing to understand its point of failure.
Yes.
And then you say, I found the Celotex culture under which I worked influenced the way I approached my job pre-June 2017. And then you go on to explain what happens after June 2017 with the appointment of the new technical director.
Yes.
And you learnt more about the way Saint-Gobain did things.
Another way of doing things.
Yes, another way of doing things. To be clear, do you mean here the Celotex culture of test, get a pass, launch really continued for you during your whole time as product manager?
Yes.
Thank you. Now, you told us before that you took over as product manager for RS 5000 from Mr. Roper on the 1st of October 2014, but you had a handover from him
Yes.
in September of that year.
Yes.
And you deal with that at paragraph 61 and following of your statement at page 49. And let's just look at paragraph 61, just to remind you of what you say in that paragraph. Page 49. You say there, I inherited RS 5000 as product manager on the 1st of October 2014. And then in the third line, you refer to Mr. Roper planning a handover meeting during September 2014 while I was still working as a technical services officer. And then you've got an email there. And then a written summary is what you refer to in paragraph 62. Let's just look at the written summary then. This is at CEL 401024. That's the email he sends to you, which is blank. But that's the one you refer to in your statement. The handover document itself is at CEL 401025. So that gives you the date. The email gives you the date. This gives you the document. Do you remember seeing this document at
Yes.
the time?
Yes.
You do. And it's entitled Celotex RS 5000. Just on that, did you have any handover specifically in relation to any other product, or just Celotex RS 5000?
I had a handover on the. Oh yes, there was another product that was handed over to me.
Which was that?
It was a. It was in development. It was a full fill cavity wall
Right.
solution.
And was there a similar document like this that John Raper prepared for that product?
Maybe I can't recall it, but I'm sure there was.
Right, I see.
Yeah.
And under overview, it says, Celotex RS5000 was launched on 5th of August 2014 following successful testing to BS8414 Part 2 2005 as Celotex's premium solution for rain screen cladding applications below and above 18 metres. The exclusion of Celotex solutions in buildings above 18 metres in height has historically been one of the main product gaps against phenolic and accounts for about £15 million of Kingspan's Cooltherm annual turnover. Celotex RS5000 passed on the second attempt of testing after a slight variation to the construction was made second time around. Now, you say in your statement that Mr. Roper talked you through the changes. At that meeting, did he tell you about the addition of a 6mm magnesium oxide panel at the level 2 thermocouples and also at the top of the rig?
No, he didn't.
He didn't. Now let's look at the handwritten notes I think you did from that meeting. This is CEL 402555. CEL 402555, please. Are those notes? Are those your notes of the meeting?
Yes, they are.
Now, you can see the date in the top left-hand corner, 26th of September 2014. Is that correct? That's the date you refer to at paragraph 63 of your statement.
Yes.
And you can see at the top of the page that it refers to BS 8414 Part 2 2005, defines test parameters, BR 135 assesses the results of fire test and gives the pass or fail.
Yes.
Is that something that Mr. Roper explained to you?
Yes, I think he would have. Well, by my notes there, I've written down that there was a test and then there was a document which had the pass-fail criteria.
Was this news to you, this technical detail, or was it something you'd had some training on in the past?
I was aware, as a technical officer, I was aware that these two documents, but yeah.
Yes. And he then goes on a third of the way down the page to cover Kingspan's K15 product. Do you see it? It says Kingspan 2006, tested to Part 1, retested to Part 2 recently in last 3 months. Cooltherm, £60 million per year, and then it says something, same. Can you read that? Can you read the words?
Source, Comet. It's the source of the information where John Roper has found that information.
Right, what does it say? Source what?
Comet Intel. It could be a...
Or could it be confidential?
No, it's COMET, Comet, and Intel.
Comet Intel. Oh, what is Comet Intel? Is it a database, an intelligence database?
Yeah, I
think it might be.
I don't know for now.
Right, and then K15, £15 million, biggest contributor to something, created a market and no one challenged it. When you say created a market and no one challenged it, what does that mean?
That I've written it down as he said it to me.
Right. Did you understand him? And let me just take this slowly.
Yeah.
Did you think that John Roper meant that K15 had no commercial competitors above 18 metres? Or did you think that he meant that no one had challenged the genuineness of the basis on which K15 had acquired and maintained its market dominance, do you think?
I think it was the first one you said.
First,
yeah.
Right. Now, underneath that, on the right-hand side of the page, it reads NHBC, historically, yes, 2014, not sure. Do you remember what that was about?
Yeah, I think NHBC historically have always accepted, but after sort of 2014, they perhaps weren't so sure about K15.
Well, you're in September 2014, and you say in your answer just now, sort of, but after sort of 2014, perhaps weren't so sure.
Yeah.
Do you remember what John Roper was telling you on the 26th of September about what was happening in 2014 with the NHBC?
Yes, I think the 2014 is references now.
Right.
So at that time, now, currently, they weren't sure.
And what were they not sure about? Do you remember?
Well, as I wrote that down, I don't know, but I later went on to learn, in my time working with the product and engaging with the NHBC, I later learned that they had questions about the test. So,
Questions about whose test?
sorry, I've got confused. So they had questions, they had reason to question the market, the K15.
Right. So, I see. And underneath that, it says lobbying 8414 set criteria and set a standard pass fail. What was that a reference to?
Again, I've written it down as he said it to me. I'm sure he's put a set of words around that, which is why I've written it down. But whether I've understood that or I don't remember today,
Right.
I don't remember. But I'm sure if I've written it down, he must have explained something to me.
Right. Just above that, I should have shown you this first. It says tested masonry, external K15, cement particle board cladding. Do you remember what that was about?
Yeah, that's the build-up of the 8414 test that Kingspan did,
Right.
as I understood it from
And
his.
was it in that context that you wrote down, or he said to you, lobbying 8414?
Sorry, yes.
Right.
Yes, that is.
So who did you think was lobbying?
Again, I don't know. If the honest answer is, it's not that I don't know. I'm sure he would have said something. It's whether it's stuck. It's whether I've been aware of it or whether I've taken it in. I don't know.
Right. Just, I know it's difficult to recall precisely a meeting 6 years ago, but was it your impression at the time that the lobbying was being done by Kingspan in relation to K15, or whether it was whether Celotex had to go out and lobby?
No. I don't understand what he means there by lobbying. I really don't. And it certainly wasn't anything to do with Celotex lobbying.
All right, well, let's pick this up a little bit later in the document. If you go to page 5, please, you can see 2/3 of the way down the page on page 5 that there is a box
Yes.
which says 8414 provisions, revisions, and there's arrow, lobby with KS. What's KS?
Kingspan?
And what was the reference to lobby with KS? Do you remember?
No. When I had this handover, I was still working in the technical services team, and there was a lot of new information, a lot of technical information which was coming my way. Some of it I wrote down, and I was present when John Roper was talking to me about this, but I can't be sure that I took it all in, and I can't be sure that I understood it. And as I've written it down, I can't be sure I fully understand what he said to me.
Right. And then well, let's see the next line down. There's a little heading says benefits PIR phenolic accepted outside of a system test. All competition on a level playing field.
Yeah,
Remember what that was about?
No, I do. As I spent time working with RS 5000 and understanding exactly the reality of how it was used on projects and on the commercial side of things, I can put some meaning to these two lines. But when I wrote this, I don't recall what he means by that. I'm sure he was telling me something, but it didn't register with me.
What did you then come to learn later at Celotex, which would enable you to explain these entries now?
Well, I think the biggest challenge I experienced working with RS 5000 was how do people use it outside of its tested system. So I can only, as I've reviewed these documents, because I think once I've written this, there's very few times I would have revisited what I've written here in my time as a product manager. But in reviewing the documents, I've seen this, and my understanding, is probably along the lines of, I don't know, it could be that the Kingspan were trying to, find a way to get the systems all accepted. I am struggling to put some meaning behind that.
Now let's go back to page 2, and that sets out RS 5000
Yes.
there, and you can see that it says £50,000 sales in 2 months, RS 5000. On what you knew at the time, was that a lot, £50,000 worth of sales in 2 months?
No. I didn't know that.
You didn't know one way or the other?
No, I didn't know.
I follow.
I just wrote that down.
And then you can see that the whole page, you can't see the whole page, but it's got test 1 at the top of the page, thank you, and test 2 at the bottom of the page. Test 1 failed, and you can see the build-up underneath that, and test 2 passed, and you can see the build-up under that. If we look at the diagram of the second test, you can see there that the build-up is listed, but there's no reference there to magnesium oxide or to the use of 8mm Eternit panels. Is that because Mr. Roper didn't mention that to you at this meeting?
That's exactly right.
Did he tell you about any discussions that he'd had with the BRE about the test rig used for the successful second test?
No.
Did he tell you anything of Celotex's involvement in the BRE test report and how it came to be finalised?
No.
Did he tell you about any plan to make sure that the BRE test report didn't refer to the presence of a layer of magnesium oxide or the presence of 8mm Eternit panels?
No, it wasn't a topic at all in
Not
this handover.
discussed at all.
No.
Now, if we look at your witness statement at page 23, paragraph 68, please. I just want to pop back into that. You say there, John Roper highlighted NHBC concerns with the test, the cladding thickness, orientation and sheathing board. The cladding thickness concern was because the boards tested were thicker and were therefore not representative of what is commonly used. The orientation concern was because when installed there were fewer joints, i.e. fewer gaps between the cladding boards, and therefore it was understood there would be less airflow within the cavity to fan a fire. Did you take from that the NHBC's concerns in particular were whether the rig as tested, or at least as they understood that it had been tested, was properly representative? Was a properly representative system?
Yes.
Yes. If we can then go back to your note, please, at page 2, we can see at the bottom right-hand corner, NHBC concerns 3 points: cladding, orientation, sheathing board. So that picks up that point. And then at page 5, we can see NHBC outcome. At the top of the page, agreed temp test, build up engineered to get a pass. What did you understand that was a reference to? Build up engineered to get a pass.
That the lack of ventilation gaps between the cladding boards was the lack of ventilation gaps may mean that the fire didn't have a chance to, or the fire within the test didn't really get a chance. There wasn't the correct airflow going into the cavity in order to feed the fire.
Right. What about the thickness of the panels?
Yeah, the 12mm, they were thicker than, so the orientation of the board, so they were installed in a way which limited the amount of air gaps, and the thickness of the board as well, I believe, was questionable.
Now, you say in your statement at paragraph 84, and there's no need to go to it, I don't think, that after this meeting you then sought further meetings with Jamie Hayes in order to get a more detailed technical picture.
Yeah.
Was the purpose of your wanting a deeper technical understanding so that you could equip yourself adequately to be able to deal with fire engineers and specialists who might ring up and ask about the tests?
It was, yes. I think I'd been asked to comment on a canal drawing, which I knew nothing. I wouldn't have known anything about the technical side of the 8414 Part 2 test. And I showed Jamie the drawing, and I asked him what his thoughts, because I wasn't involved with either of the 2 Celotex tests. And it just came from there. And I thought, well, I ought to really know a little bit more about 8414 Part 2 and the BR3. So I asked Jamie to, I arranged some time to sit down with Jamie, and he talked me through it.
Yes. And if we go to page 50 of your witness statement, please, paragraph 189, I think you set out there the background in a bit more detail.
Yes.
And then at the foot of the page, you say in paragraph 189, for clarity, I believe it was on 24th of October that Jamie Hayes had first told me about his concerns about the Celotex test. This happened because I'd raised the NAV test with him, and then we go into the sequence, and we'll look at that in a moment. And then you spoke a couple of days later. You say that your impression was that he was concerned about the test. What gave you that impression? Do you remember?
Yeah, his just demeanour, his body language, the fact. Jamie and I worked together for 4 or 5, I can't remember how many years now, 4 years. And, he very comfortable talking. So he didn't really hesitate in telling me what he knew about the test. But he did approach it in a way which made me think, well, what's happened then? What's going on?
Where were you sitting physically in the office? He told us he was downstairs.
Yes, so
whereas Mr. Roper was upstairs.
Yeah,
Where were you?
informally, the Knauf drawing I would have spoken to him informally about. So I would have either emailed him or printed it off and gone down to speak to him informally about it, just for his comments, and then we arranged one of the meeting rooms. We were in one of the meeting rooms when we had the test report, the method. I think he had the 8414 methodology and the BR135 report as well. And we were actually in a meeting room.
Right. When you say methodology, what are you referring to?
Just like the 8414 BS document, the British Standard, the 8414.
Okay. And what about BR135, the publication?
Yes, I think he probably would have had that with him as well.
Now, if we go to paragraph 87 of your statement, you say there, in the build-up to the preparation of this statement, I've reread and reconsidered some of the documents from this period, including documents relating to the cavity barriers, specifically DB14 and DB15, both of which date to this meeting with Jamie Hayes. He drew document C, which is DB14, and I annotated document C, DB15. Now, those have numbers for the inquiry, and we'll come to them in a moment. On reviewing these documents, I now recall that something had happened to do with the cavity fire barrier detail, and that this was mentioned by Jamie Hayes in my meeting with him. My recollection is that he told me the only sign of it in the test report is in the photographs at the back of the test report. I'm pretty sure in hindsight that he mentioned 6mm oxide board. While at the time I recognised he was concerned about this, amongst all the new learning for me at that time, its significance genuinely didn't sink in properly with me. From my handover with John Roper, the separate issue of the NHBC concerns, such as gaps between the cladding, is the main thing which stuck out in my mind. And that's what you say there. Let's look at the diagram. Can we go to CEL 402686? CEL 402686. Is this the diagram DB14 that Mr. Hayes drew during the conversation?
Yes, it is.
Was it on the 24th of October 2014 at the meeting that you referred to?
I don't know, if I'm honest. I don't know when he drew this. I think on the 24th it was informal, and we sat down more seriously when we had the 32-page test report. I genuinely can't recall.
Right.
I genuinely don't know if that was then or he wouldn't have done that informally. This was, I think, when we sat down.
And how long after the 24th of October, which is I think for the meeting you referred to, did you sit down with Jamie Hayes?
It would have been shortly after. I would have thought.
Shortly after you got the full report.
Yes. Yeah.
Which was on the 27th of October.
I would have thought so. Yeah.
Yes, I see. So these two meetings were only a few days apart. Is that right?
I think there was something to talk about. So yeah, we sat down.
Yes, I see. Okay. Now, just looking at this document here on the screen, do you remember if the hatched section with the thick black line is where he told you the 6mm magnesium oxide was?
When you say hatched,
cross-hatched.
Cross-hatched.
Crosses. So a third of the way down the drawing.
Yes, I think that piece of the drawing refers to where the cavity fire barrier is.
And what about the top?
I think all of the hard lines are referring to areas, are referring to the same areas.
Right. Now, you said in your statement that Mr. Hayes told you something about a cavity barrier visible only at the back of the test report. And you're pretty sure in hindsight that he mentioned 6 millimetres magnesium oxide. Do you remember, was that the first time that anyone had told you about the presence of 6 millimetres of magnesium oxide on the rig?
Yes,
Right. And what was your reaction to that?
I was shocked.
Right.
I was a little bit. I didn't think Celotex would do that to start with. I didn't think Celotex. I didn't believe Celotex and the company I was working for would do what we, would do that.
Right.
I trusted.
And just to go back, we'll come back into the detail in a moment, but just on that answer, did you seek to take your concerns, your shock, as you've described it, to Mr. Evans?
I did. I took it to him in an not. I don't know if I took it to him verbally, because Jamie shared this information with me, and I didn't know what to do with it, if I'm honest with you. But the whole of me learning about this came into the context of the canal system. So when I was asked to comment on the canal system, I shared what I'd learnt. I shared what I'd learnt about the test to the management of Celotex. And I shared it. There was an email I think I've written, which I've seen in evidence. But I wrote that email with Jamie's support. Jamie would have helped me write that email.
Right. Do you remember when that was?
No.
Right.
I don't, not without looking at the evidence.
Right.
I couldn't.
Okay, we may come to that. But did you go back to John Roper
No.
and ask him why he hadn't told you about the 6 millimetres magnesium oxide at your handover meeting?
No, I didn't. No, I didn't.
Did you seek to go to Paul Evans and have a meeting with him or a discussion with him?
No, I didn't.
Why's that?
Because at the time when I learnt this information, it was, I think when I learnt this information, I was about 3 or 4 weeks into my new post. I didn't know what to do with it, if I'm honest with you. I wish, it is a regret of mine now. There are many regrets that I've had, in reviewing this evidence, and there's lots of opportunities, I think, where I wish I had taken Paul Evans to one side and sat him down and said, look, not just a section of 10 minutes at the end of our monthly catch-up meeting, but actually perhaps in that time I could have said to him, look, with RS we need more time than 10 minutes, please can we sit down and put an hour to it? And I wish I'd invited Jamie. I wish Jamie and I, because we didn't really talk about it much, Jamie and I, it was like a secret. I don't know, it was just something that we didn't talk about. But I wish we had.
No,
I really do.
Did you get the impression from anything Jamie Hayes said to you at the time that Paul Evans didn't know about the presence of the 6 millimetres?
I don't recall Jamie telling me about who knew and who didn't know. I really don't.
Okay. Now, going back to the documents, can we go to CEL 409742? We need, I think, page 2, please, of that. And this is an email from you on the 27th of October 2014 to John Roper, subject full 32-page file report. Hi John, will you please email the full 32-page file report for RS 5000? And then if we just scroll up page 2 a little bit, to the bottom of page 1, you can see that he responds the same day to you attaching the full 32-page file report.
Yes.
So that's the date when you received it from John Roper. And that's the basis of the correction you made to your witness statement.
Yes,
At the beginning
yes.
of your evidence.
Yeah.
Now, if you go to CEL 408507, this is the report itself. In fact, I think it's 33 pages. And it's number 295369, dated the 1st of August 2014. And if you go to page 13 on that, we can see that there's a photograph captioned Figure 3, the system prior to testing. Now, this is, I'm afraid, a black and white version, but that I think is what you received. Did you receive this in black and white?
I think I did.
Right.
Yes.
You can see, just looking at the rig, that there are two colours of panel. There's a white, a series of white sections of panel, and then darker sections towards the top of the rig and at the very top of the rig. Did you notice that at the time?
I must have done.
Right. And on the right-hand side of the page, well, let me just tell you, we know from Mr. Roper's evidence that that was where the 8mm Marley Eternit panels were, and they were orange as opposed to white. You can see on the right-hand side, although it's not entirely clear what order it's to be read in, you've put WTF, MGO 6mm plus 8mm Marley Eternit panel.
Yes.
Now, just dealing with the measurements first, in your statement, and I don't think it's necessary to go to it, it's paragraphs 89 and 90 on page 28, you say that your understanding of the tested system now is that a 12mm cladding board was used throughout the rig, and you say that your annotation suggests that you didn't fully understand that at the time.
Yes.
In fact, I think you did know, didn't you, because Mr. Hayes had told you that there was an 8mm Marley Eternit rig at those 2 points.
Yes.
Right. Did he tell you that before or after you received the report?
I think it's difficult. It's difficult to know. I think he told me about. He told me. It's difficult to recall. I think he must have said to me. I don't think he told me in that specific detail. I think he probably listed some things, including the orientation of the board, the lack of gaps, and some reinforcements to. Yeah, some
Right.
reinforcements. I don't think he went into that specific detail. If he did, I don't remember it.
When you sat down with Jamie Hayes the second time, did you discuss this report?
Yes.
You did. Can you recall the context or occasion on which you wrote these words on this?
Yes, we were going through. We were going through the report. He was, going through, and then we got to the photographs and stuff, and that's when he showed me, because obviously this picture you can see.
Right. So can we take it that Mr. Hayes explained to you, and you recorded, that there was a 6mm magnesium oxide board at that point on the rig behind an 8mm panel of Marley Eternit?
Yes.
So with that in mind, can I just ask you to look at paragraph 90 of your statement? 89 and 90 on page 28. We probably need both. And you say there, on thinking back and putting all of this together, it's my understanding today that in the retest, a 12mm cladding board was used throughout the fire test rig, and at separating floors where a cavity fire barrier was installed, this was reinforced with 6mm magnesium oxide board at those junctions. However, I wasn't present at the test, and so I don't actually have direct knowledge of what happened. I note that document C, which is what we've been looking at, I've written 6mm and 8mm. See notes at page 12 of the document. This suggests to me that I did not fully understand this at the time, since based on my understanding in the preceding paragraph, it seems I got the figures wrong. In fact, isn't it correct, given what you've told us today, looking at the test report and your notes on it and looking at the sequence again, actually your statement is incorrect, and that you did understand what Mr. Hayes had told you, which you then wrote down correctly on the report? I
think my statement says 12mm cladding board because when I reviewed these documents, that is how I understood it. When it says, I didn't know. I honestly did not know how that detail was put together. And I wrote 8mm and 6mm, I did. But once I probably never revisited, I probably put that probably put that document into a drawer, and I never looked at it again. And there was lots of things going on at that time when I learnt about these details. And I think the detail itself, as Jamie explained it to me, over time it receded from my mind. It didn't stick in my mind for whatever reason. And it is only when I reviewed these documents to assist the inquiry that I was shown these documents. I was shown a few documents, and then bells started ringing, and I was yeah, something happened at the cavity fire barrier. For me, the thing that I took away from that period of time and moving forward were the NHBC concerns.
And we may come to that later. Just on this point, though, you say in paragraph 90 that where you've written 6 millimetres and 8 millimetres, you say, it seems I got the figures wrong. In fact, what I'm asking you is whether that's really right. Because
Yes, I think I've written 8 and 6 millimetres down, and I think at that time, when I was sitting with Jamie, he would have said to me 8 and 6 millimetres, and I've written it down.
Exactly. So you wrote them down correctly.
I wrote them down correctly.
What-
Yeah,
Right. So what figures have you got wrong?
I've got my 12 millimetre figure
Right.
wrong.
Okay. I see. Thank you. That clarifies it.
Yeah.
Now, going back, if we can, to the report at page 13 of CEL 408507. We've covered the figures, but you've also marked it up WTF. Is that a shorthand for surprise and alarm?
It's shorthand for shock that
Yes.
this could have happened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, at paragraph 92 of your statement, if we can just dot back to that, you say the reinforcement is not mentioned in the test report or the marketing literature. Did that occur to you? Did that observation occur to you at the time?
No. No, it didn't.
And you say at paragraph 93, by reference to the annotation WTF on the BRE report, you say, a quarter of the way down, my writing WTF clearly shows that I recognise there was a concern about this area. I assume I do not need to expand on what WTF stands for. As I've said, while at the time I recognised Jamie Hayes was expressing concern about this, and my annotation reflects that, in amongst all the new learning for me at the time, its true significance genuinely didn't sink in with me. But in fact, you were shocked because Jamie's concern reflected your WTF reaction, didn't it?
Sorry, could you say that again?
Well, is it right that in fact Jamie Hayes's concerns, as you could observe them, was consistent with your own reaction? WTF? So you were both concerned about the same thing?
I think we were, yes, I mean, we were shocked. I was shocked that, I was shocked that it happened.
When you took over from John Roper, did you have an opportunity to review the launch presentation material that all the sales executives had been given in early August?
No, I did not.
Right. Did you look at any of the marketing literature, which had been designed by Celotex and was then being used to sell RS5000 into the market?
Yes, I was first introduced to the literature for RS5000 when I was a technical service officer.
Right. When you discovered the presence of 6 millimetres of magnesium oxide and 8 millimetres of Marley Eternit panels on the test rig, did you compare that knowledge, what you'd learned, with what was actually stated about the build-up of the components of the test rig in the marketing literature?
I did not. It didn't occur to me to not do that.
Did there come a time after this period, after October 2014, when it occurred to you that in fact the marketing literature being used by Celotex made no mention at all of the presence of the 6 millimetres magnesium oxide or the 8 millimetres of Marley Eternit?
The whole topic of the 6 and 8 millimetre Marley around the cavity receded from my mind. It really didn't imprint itself. There was a lot of technical information that I was being shown at the time, And, you know, I remember Jamie, I remember talking about this, and there was a lot of technical information. Some of it stuck, some of it didn't. I thought to myself, is Jamie being... The detail, I didn't understand it. I didn't deal with cavity fire barriers as a technical service officer. And I suppose somewhere in the back of my mind, you know, I thought, well, it's passed a test. So I didn't honestly, it genuinely receded. I could better understand and take on board and absorb the NHBC concerns that were raised in terms of the orientation of the board, the gapping, the ventilation. That, as I say, I think I say it in my statement, I took that on more easily because that's something that the amount of ventilation is something that I would have considered in a U-value calculation.
Well, also those facts weren't a secret, were they?
No, they weren't really a secret. They were talked about. That's exactly right.
And can you just explain for us why or how come something that was so shocking when you discovered it could recede from your mind?
I don't know, other than I haven't, it's not something I deliberately wanted to hide. It's something because I think I would have, if I had recalled it and known about it, I would have shared it with the management of Celotex, because I shared other details, some which, you know, weren't talked about. I still was open about those. So I honestly think that if I had have understood that and logged it, I would have shared that as well. I wasn't afraid to share difficult information.
So why didn't you share this?
Because it didn't register with me. It just didn't, even though the WTF is there, and I have explained my shock. I wonder if, you know, I think my shock was more to do with the fact that, my God, the test, it's been like, you know, how did they do that?
How did they do that? Why did they do that? Did that occur to you? Did you ask yourself the question, what was the point of the 6 millimetres of magnesium?
It's really difficult because I've been able to, so much more has been revealed to me as I've been reviewing other Celotex people's statements and things and evidence. And at the time, I can honestly say that detail did not stick with me. I didn't understand it. It was another layer of technical information I was taking in. I was taking in about 8414 Part 2, test methodology, the positioning of thermocouples, and other things that go on in that. And this was another detail. And some of other details of the fire test have stuck with me more easily, but this one didn't.
And what was it, you remember, that was so shocking about the presence of 6 millimetres?
I didn't think Celotex would do this. I didn't think Celotex would. I thought Celotex was a good company. I thought Celotex prided itself on doing the right thing, being honest. And I was really shocked by this.
You say do this, do what?
Well,
what was the core of the reason for your shock?
Well, it appeared to me that Celotex had taken some materials and installed them to pass the test.
That occurred to you at the time, did it?
Yes.
And did that occur to you at the time as a particularly serious and misleading act?
There were in my mind at the time, there were a handful of things about the test which had been used to engineer a pass, so to speak. And in my opinion, you know, at the time, I thought the 12 millimetre thickness of the board, the orientation of the board, the lack of cladding. I remember Jamie talking to me about how there were some reinforcements around the actual fire chamber, and all of these details I have been very open about, and they were part of this story, this part of the story, but the detail about the cavity fire barrier, it did not register with me.
Right. Now, if we go to paragraph 96 of your statement, please. It's a long paragraph on page 30 there, but if we just look, please, at the first quarter of it, you say, in the second line, I'm also able to recall Jamie Hayes saying, at the meeting I describe above, paragraphs 84 and 85, and then that's the second meeting, I think, that there had been a request that the photographs showing the reinforced cladding should not be included in the report. Did Mr. Hayes explain why?
No, he didn't explain why. He was just telling that part of the story to me. I think he was just saying they try to hide it. Maybe that's the why.
Who's the they? Who tried to hide it?
I don't. Well, the people that did the testing.
Oh, was that what you understood?
The people from Celotex that did the testing.
Right.
Sorry.
You go on to say the reinforcements around the cavity fire barrier were not described in writing or diagrams within the report. And since I was not involved in the test, I am unable to assist as to how or why this is so, but Jamie Hayes told me that because of this, the BRE representative said he couldn't leave the photographs out, hence they remained in the report. It's a long sentence, but what is the this that you're referring to, that Jamie Hayes said? Jamie Hayes told me that because of this, the BRE representative said he couldn't leave the photographs out. What is the this?
I don't know. It's hard to explain. I don't know.
Just leaving aside the text of the statement, casting your eye away from it, do you remember what reason Jamie Hayes gave you for the BRE representative saying that the photographs couldn't be left out?
I mean, I can look at it. Obviously, when I look at it today, it seems obvious to me why the BRE would say that, because they wanted to, show evidence of the tested system as such.
But at the time,
how Jamie explained it to me, and this. It's very. I honestly can't recall. I genuinely cannot recall exactly that.
Did you read the report, or rather that part of the report that spelt out what the components of the test rig were?
We must have done. We must have looked at it.
Did it strike you as... Well, did you notice that in that description there was no reference there to the 6 millimetres of magnesium oxide or the 8 millimetres of Marley Eternit panels?
I think I don't know, is the honest answer. I honestly don't recall whether we looked at that and Jamie said, look, this is where it should have been. I think it's... from how I've learnt about things moving on, the cavity fire barrier detail would have a separate, wouldn't be included in the main drawing of the 8414. Wouldn't be a cross section through it. Yeah.
So you can't remember? You can't remember comparing the list of the details of the components with what you then learnt about the actual true components of the rig?
I think if I had, I don't know. I would have. I think I would have put it in my statement. I don't know if I had remembered it.
Right. Do we take it from your evidence thus far that you took no steps to alert any of your colleagues or anybody else that the test report incompletely described the May 2014 test rig build-up?
That's correct.
And again, why is that?
Because I'm not sure I knew how to talk about it at that time. As I said, I wish I had organised a separate meeting and taken people in to a meeting room and talked about it more formally. But the whole knowledge of me coming up with this, understanding the test as such, is to do with the canal drawing.
Right.
So.
Now, from this time onwards, you're clearly aware, as you've told us, that of the presence of the magnesium oxide and the 8mm of Marley Eternit. Can we take it from what you're saying that from that time onwards you knew that the marketing literature was misleading in that it didn't refer to either of those elements of the build-up either?
As I sit here now and having reviewed all the evidence, then yes.
Right. And similarly, the test report itself?
Yes, as I sit here now and having reviewed all the evidence and discussed this with other people, then yes.
Now, Mr. Chairman, that's probably a convenient moment. I'm going to turn to a different topic.
Yes, well, it probably is in that case, isn't it? Good, thank you. Ms. Berger, we're going to have a short break now. We'll come back and continue at 25 to 12, please. And I'd have to ask you, while you're out of the room, not to talk to anyone about your evidence or anything to do with it.
Yeah.
Right? Right, would you like to go with the usher then?
Thank you.
Thank you. 25 to 12, please. Yes, would you ask Ms. Berger to come back in, please? Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
Right, you ready to carry on, Mrs. Berger?
Thank you.
Good, thank you. Yes, Mr. Miller.
Ms. Berger, can I ask you to be shown back, please, the full report, the full test report, CEL 408507.
Yes.
And I want to go back, please, to page 13 in that. And your manuscript on the right-hand side. Now, we can see that you've written down the 6mm and the 8mm, and then the WTF just above that. The WTF, was that a reaction to the picture, the photograph that's on the page there, or was it a reaction to what Mr. Hayes was saying? Do you remember?
I don't think it was the picture. I think it's to what Mr. Hayes was telling me.
Right. And your reaction, of surprise or shock, was that a reaction to the substance of what he was saying, namely the very presence of yet another feature of the rig that would assist it pass the test, or was it the fact that it was a secret?
I think the first.
Right, thank you. Can I then turn to your involvement with the LABC as the
Yes.
next topic? If you go to paragraph 35 of your witness statement, please. You can see there that top of page 15, you can see that you say, regarding compliance with safety standards, the LABC 2016 certificate, which you exhibit as DB2, referred to compliance. This was created by a third party, independent of Celotex. And you say in the next sentence that it was signed off by John Roper. Now, if it was signed off by John Roper, that was obviously before before you took over in 2014, or is that wrong?
That's how I understand it, yeah.
Right. Now, let's just take it in stages. Let's go to CEL 709, please. This is a LABC registered details drawing and document list, which was issued in August 2014, when Mr. Roper was product manager, and which was current, I think, when you took over. Are you familiar with that document?
Not overly, no.
No. You're not saying, are you or are you? Maybe you are, that he signed that, he signed off the 2016 version. Or are you talking about this document?
I don't know which document Mr. Roper signed off.
Right. Did Mr. Roper ever discuss Kingspan's LABC certificate with you during your handover?
Not that I can recall.
Right. Do you remember whether you ever looked up Kingspan's own LABC certificate at any stage?
I don't think so, no.
Right. Let me just show it to you and see if it's familiar. NHB 50798. This is the LABC certificate for Kingspan K15, which they issued on the 20th of August 2014, so only a few weeks before you took over as product manager at Celotex. Just looking at it now on the screen and looking at the dates, is this a document you think you've seen before?
I may have done, but I don't
Right.
recall it.
Did you never seek to find out how the LABC were describing K15 when working out how you would think that the LABC should describe Celotex RS5000?
Sorry, can you repeat that?
Yes. Did you ever seek to find out how the LABC were describing K15 when looking at the question of how the LABC should describe Celotex RS5000?
I don't recall doing so.
All right. Now, I want to ask you about your involvement with the LABC between the August 2014 certificate we've just looked at and the issue of the 2016 certificate that you've referred to in your statement. Can we go to CEL 402021, please, and look at page 2. This is an email run in early November 2014 between Celotex and Sam Lee of the LABC. And on page 2, halfway down that page, you can see that there's an email from Sam Lee on the 3rd of November 2014 to John Roper. And the subject is important changes to your LABC registration, EW491 Celotex, Celotex RS5000 PIR Insulation Board. And if you look at the heading, there's the reference registered details for Celotex RS5000, and then the text of the email says this: as part of the recent improvements LABC has made to the registered details scheme and website, there have been several important changes made to your registration. And then the reference to the new certificates. And if we look at the new certificate that was sent, this is at LABC 40312. If we can have that up. And you can see that this is certificate number EW491 for RS5000, and at the very bottom of the page you can see that under the heading validity it says this certificate was first issued on 21st of August 2014 and is valid until 21st of August 2015. Issue date 13th of August 2014. Are you familiar with this document?
Yes.
Yes. And in the main box at the top of the page, or towards the top of the page, just opposite the image, it says description of product. And it says, this is an assessment of a PIR insulation board by Celotex, designed for use within rain screen construction. RS5000 is a textured aluminium foil-faced PIR board that comes in thicknesses of between 50 millimetres and 150 millimetres, and goes through the same manufacturing process as the Celotex FR5000 product. The difference being that it has been assessed by the BRE and complies with BR 135/2013 for use in rain screen applications above 18 metres in height. See conditions of certificate for more information. If you go to key factors assessed, it identifies the second one of those as safety in case of fire. And if we go to page 2 of that document, you can see the scope of registration. Celotex has provided test reports undertaken by BRE and BBA to verify the product from both performance in fire and thermal properties. And it goes on, the product is much the same as their FR5000 board, but is specifically tested to be used with rain screen constructions above 18 metres. The board comes in various thicknesses and can be used with a variety of cladding systems, including masonry or rain screen systems, and can be fixed back to a structural steel frame with a sheathing board or direct back to masonry. Celotex RS5000 has been successfully tested to BS 8414 Part 2 2005, meets the criteria set out in BR 135 2013, and therefore is acceptable for use in buildings with stories above 18 metres in height, subject to matching the specification criteria of the BRE Fire Test Report 295255 carried out as alternative compliance to ADB. Were you familiar with that text at the time? When I say at the time, from the time that it was it arrived with you in November 2014?
Not overly familiar with it, no.
Right. And there are conditions of certificate which are at the bottom, and I'll just pick out one or two parts of that. It says, for use in rain screen wall construction, including above 18 metres height. And then 3 lines down it says, Celotex RS5000 can be used with a variety of cladding systems, including masonry or rain screen systems, and can be fixed back to a structural steel frame with a sheathing board or direct back to masonry. And then just halfway down that block of text, 4 lines up from the bottom, it says, this classification is only valid for the system specification and detailing outlined in section 2 of the BRE Fire Test Report 295255, including the associated details found in section 4 test reports as an alternative compliance to ADB. A full copy of the report should be made available by Celotex. Again, were you familiar with that, those conditions, that wording at the time?
Not overly.
Not that. Okay. Now, going back to the email run, and I read that in detail to you, Ms. Berger, because we're going to look at it in a bit more detail, but looking at how this got to you, if we go back to the email run at CEL 402021, please. we go to page 1, we can see that John Roper, at the bottom of page 1, sends that to you on the 3rd of November. He forwards it to you, and he says, Debs, for you. And then he says, please go back to LABC and ask to take out any references that RS5000 is the same product as FR5000. Do you know why he asked you that question?
Why he asked me that
Yes,
question?
why did he ask you to ask the LABC to remove the reference to the fact that RS5000 was the same product as FR5000?
No, he was just something. No, I thought they'd made a mistake by putting FR5000 in. I thought, oh, they've put FR5000 in. It's RS that's been tested to above 18 metres.
Did you know at the time that, in fact, RS5000 was
Yes.
FR5000?
Yes, I knew that.
You did. So,
Yes.
so given that you knew that, did you not ask yourself why it was that John Roper wanted the LABC to remove the references to the fact that RS5000 was the same product as FR5000?
I thought it was completely normal. I thought it was completely normal that, you know, FR5000 had been used in a number, you know, other applications as well. The product had been used for cavity wall, and it was being used for RS. I didn't know anything different. That was how it was. I just accepted this. This is what he wanted me to do.
When you say it was completely normal, I'm not sure I've followed that. Let me just see if I can take it in stages. You say you knew that RS5000 was the same as FR5000. Did you know that, in fact, the marketing launch slides shown to the marketing teams in early August had described RS5000 as an additional product to the
Yeah.
existing range?
Yes, and it could be my lack of experience or my naivety. I don't know, but this is the first time I've been a product manager, and this is what happened, and I accepted that.
Did you know, or perhaps come to understand, that the marketing teams had not been told that RS5000 was the same as FR5000 but just rebranded?
The marketing team.
The marketing teams, sales teams.
I thought it was common knowledge. I thought they knew.
Right. Okay. What was the point of asking the LABC to take out the references to the fact, which was true, that RS5000 was the same product as FR5000?
Just because this was the product that was being marketed for the above 18 metre, the above 18 metre market.
Right. But did it not occur to you that by asking the LABC to remove those references, readers of the LABC certificate might think that RS5000 was a new product?
I've heard this being discussed in evidence.
Well,
you know,
never mind the evidence. I'd like to know whether at the time you understood Mr. Roper to be asking you to tell the LABC to remove RS5000, the references to FR5000, and the fact that it was the same product as RS5000 at the time, because that might lead a reader otherwise of the certificate to think that it was the same product, which was in fact the case.
I didn't understand. I didn't see anything. I honestly didn't. I just did not see anything underhand in it. I just saw, FR5000 is a multi-purpose board used in lots of different applications. RS5000 is specifically for the above 18 metres. So, and that's what they'd asked me to do. So that's exactly what I did.
Right. And did it occur to you that by doing that, if the LABC had complied with the instructions that Mr. Roper was giving to you, the LABC certificate would be misleading?
Sorry, could you repeat that?
The LABC certificate would be misleading if they removed those references, because it would then give the impression that RS5000 was a new product, as opposed to the truth, which was that it was the same product as FR5000.
I was not aware of that at the time.
Right. You were not aware of what?
what you just said, that FR5, that it could be misleading, that RS was a new product.
Right. Now, at the top of page 1 is your email to Sam Lee of the 6th of November 2014. And you say, "Hi Sam, please find attached some paragraphs of text as suggestions for use in your LABC certificates and fact sheets for RS 5000. And you have 3 of them there summarised. Let's look at the document you attached. It's CEL 402022. And looking at this, these are some detailed changes, aren't they? And looking at point 1, where you say, under the description, there's quite a long text there. And in the last sentence, you're proposing the following language. It has been assessed by the BRE and complies with BR 135 for use in rain screen applications above 18 metres in height, subject to the board being fixed to a non-combustible substrate. Now, do you accept that that was misleading?
Yes.
Thank you. And is that because it suggests that it can be used in any rain
Yeah.
screen system and not solely the system tested?
Yes.
Yes. And you knew that at the time?
I wasn't. I was uncomfortable with the wording. I was uncomfortable with the wording. It didn't match what I had, the skill set that I brought to the role of product management was from the technical team, and I understood the importance of a tested system. I understood the importance of 8414 Part 2 and its entirety, well, not the methodology, but I understood that the materials used on the test should be replicated, if not. So I understood the importance of a tested system, and when I read that back then, yes, was uncomfortable with that wording.
Did you draft the wording?
I don't know is the honest answer. I don't remember doing this on my own. I don't feel I would have had the knowledge to have done that on my own. I can't see myself having written those words myself.
Do you know who did, if it wasn't you?
I don't. There's a chance. I don't know whether I have created this document, but I've copied and pasted something and put it in while I was being asked to remove the word FR. For clarity, I don't know whether I've copied and pasted these paragraphs, put them on a document, and then sent them.
Right. And you say you were uncomfortable. You were uncomfortable, I would suggest, because you knew it was misleading. Is that right?
Yes, I think that's correct.
Right. And were you also uncomfortable because you would have known by this stage that the test, as described in the test report, was not as in fact described? Sorry, can I put that question again?
No, I understand.
The actual test.
I understand what you
said. The actual build-up of the rig was not as described as it was in the BRE report.
Yeah, I mean, in my time working as a product manager, the test, I don't know. It wasn't in my. It just wasn't forefront of my mind. It just really wasn't.
And looking at point 2, you see that it says in the first sentence, Celotex has provided test reports undertaken by BRE and BBA to verify the product from both performance in fire and thermal properties. Was there a BBA certificate?
That's not true of RS 5000, but the BBA is true of FR 5000.
Right. But if you'd removed the reference to FR 5000 and only referred to RS 5000, a reader of the certificate would think that a BBA certification applied to RS 5000, wouldn't they? Yes, I agree, and I have not done this very well. Well, do you agree that when it refers to BBA verifying the product from both performance in fire and thermal properties, that was untrue?
Yes, I agree it's untrue.
So why did you put this text forward, both under paragraph 1, last sentence, and paragraph 2, reference to the BBA, if you knew it was untrue? Sorry, to the LABC.
Yeah.
So, if you knew it was true.
I think, I mean, I don't want to make excuses for myself, but there was a lot going on. I was very early on in my role as a product manager. I'm not sure I've attended to the detail as I should have done. It's uncomfortable for me to say, but I've been asked to do something, I've copied and pasted. I wouldn't have done this on my own. I would have sought support from somebody within the business to talk to about this, and I felt uncomfortable about it, and it's gone off. I haven't felt great about this.
And you see, the second paragraph goes on to say, Celotex RS5000 is a premium performance PIR solution for use in rain screen cladding applications and suitable for use in building above 18 metres in height. And then it continues, the board comes in various thicknesses and can be used with a variety of cladding systems, including masonry and rain screen systems, and can be fixed back, fixes, there's an error there, back to a structural steel frame with a sheathing board or direct back to masonry. Did it occur to you that coming after the sentence about suitability for use above 18 metres, those two sentences there ran the risk of creating the impression that RS5000 could be used in a variety of cladding systems above 18 metres?
Yes, I was uncomfortable with the wording.
And you were uncomfortable, I'm bound to suggest to you, because you knew it was misleading.
I think, yes.
And you knew that at the time?
I think I had a conversation with Jamie about this, and we talked about it, but I'm not sure. I wouldn't know how to challenge. I don't think I knew at the time how to challenge it, but yes, I agree. I do agree with you that at the time I discussed it with Jamie and we felt uncomfortable about it, and it is misleading.
Right. Was it in fact the impression that you wanted to create deliberately, namely that
No.
this was a system, this
No.
was a product that could be used in a variety of systems, and not only that tested?
No, I think this was already, the product was already in the market. It was launched. It's not something. It's something I inherited. This is something that I probably didn't feel I could change the direction of the product. It was in the market and it was launched. I would not. If I had been developing this product, if I had been the product manager that was given the idea, then I would have done. I would like to think I would have done things differently, and I would not intentionally have done that.
So you say this was something I inherited. Do you mean that what Jonathan Roper described as the fraud on the market was something you inherited?
Yes.
And then you accepting that by continuing with that with the LABC, you were furthering it?
I was not aware. I was not aware of the marketing strategy, which I've obviously learned a lot more about recently. I was not aware of the marketing strategy, that it was deliberate. I just thought it's not great. It's a really poor set of words. It's misleading. At that time, I was unaware that it was all misleading. That detail has only been revealed to me recently.
If you didn't draft these words yourself, but they were provided to you, and you can't be clear about that, do you not remember going to the person who'd provided you with these words and saying to them, look, I can't put this out to the LABC, it's all downright misleading?
I didn't feel I could do that.
Why didn't you feel you could do that?
I didn't feel that the product was on the market. I was very new to my role. I didn't have a lot of experience. I saw the LABC as an authority. I just didn't feel that I was in the process of working to try and understand how the product could be used with different cladding materials.
But you understood the importance of the LABC, didn't you?
I'm not sure I did at that stage.
Right.
I'm not entirely sure I understood it. When I came to post of product manager, I didn't have a lot of commercial experience. I really didn't understand the commercial side of things. I could get to grips with the technical side of things and the tested system and the fact that it was only tested to one cladding. And I don't know how on earth they were supposed, that was the problem for me. But then the commercial value and the commercial side of things, I was very poor, I was very weak in that knowledge.
What I'm really seeking to get to the bottom of, Ms. Berger, is why, despite the fact that you knew that these words you were putting forward to the LABC, an authority, were misleading, why you just didn't follow through with that and go to the people who'd asked you to put these words forward and say, I'm sorry, I can't do that.
I think I was going along with things. I was going along with what had been launched and created without perhaps fully understanding to the level of detail that I do now. You know, as I've said, and that's I didn't feel I could challenge the way the product had been launched. I didn't feel I could challenge this.
Right. And is that because of something in you or because of something in Celotex?
I think something within me.
Okay. Now, can we look back at the email run, please? This is CEL402021. And go to the further up the email chain, page 1. We can see that you send this wording to Sam Lee at the LABC on the 6th of November, but we see who is copied in on this. As well as John Roper, we can see that Paul Evans is copied in on this. So far as you were concerned, did you have any doubts in your mind at the time that Paul Evans had seen this suggested text?
Did I have any doubts that he had seen it?
Yes. You'd copied him in on this email chat.
Oh, I assume so. I don't know. I don't recall.
Did you have a discussion with Paul Evans about the wording that you were sending to the LABC?
I don't recall so.
Right.
I think the only people I spoke to about this would have been Jamie.
Do we take it that Paul Evans never came back to you and told you that you should withdraw these suggested amendments?
No.
You seem your answer no in that way seemed
it was
quite dismissive. Is it because that was unthinkable?
Yeah, it's it's having a lot further down the track and having seen a bit more of the story, which I was not aware of at the time. You know, for me, in hindsight, I can look back on all of this now and see that there was a very strong divide between what was a system and what was technically correct and what was commercial and what was for sales. And that's why I went no, because I think, I think predominantly perhaps this product was treated as a product and set up commercially so it could be sold easily to certain projects.
Regardless of the risks to public safety?
Absolutely.
Right. Now, if we go to CEL 408691, please. This is an email chain, same day. And I'd like to look at page 2, please. Top of page 2. I think we need the bottom of page 1, in fact, for the date and the identities of the recipients. This is you, Debbie Berger, to Sam Lee, copied to John Roper, Paul Evans, etc. And if we go to the top of page 2, you can see that you say to her, "Hi Sam, I've just noticed the website is live with a certificate and fact sheet. Is it possible to limit visibility or better remove these until we've sorted out the wording?" Why did you go back to her with that?
Because somebody had asked me to, I would have thought.
Do you know who?
No, I can't remember.
And then on the page above, if we can go back to page 1, we can see Sam Lee's response, same day, at 1313. Hi, Debbie. Sorry for the delay in getting around to your emails. No problem at all. I will check with my colleague who deals with the website if we can make your landing page not visible to members of the public. I will check with my manager to see if we can make the suggested changes in your attachment on the certificates and website. Was it your understanding that although new form certificates had been issued to you and you'd gone back with these suggested revisions, those were not generally available until the wording was sorted out?
I think if I've understood your question correctly, the product was live, the certification was live. I've been asked to change the wording from RS to FR, so I simply, and I wouldn't have thought to have. I don't think I would have thought to have emailed Sam to take it down. I think it was just something I was asked to do.
Right. The next contact from the LABC seems to have been on the 12th of May 2015, so 6 months later. And let's look at an email to that effect. CEL 401286, please. This is an email from David Ewing of the LABC to you on the 12th of May. It's quite a long email. And it goes also to John Roper and Paul Evans. And before we look at the text of it, can I just ask you, do you remember whether anything happened as between Celotex on the one hand and the LABC on the other between November 2014 and May 2015?
I don't remember, and I've relied on documents that have been given to me to prompt my memory, and I genuinely don't recall without seeing.
Right. We'll come to this in a moment, but in the meantime, did you remember what the LABC certificate was during that 6-month period, on the basis of which Celotex was trading RS 5000?
Yes, I think I became aware of. I became aware of the importance of the LABC certificate in my time, gradually over that period of time.
Okay, and let's just see if we can identify the LABC certificate concerned. It's CEL 709. We looked at it at the start of this topic. And this is the LABC certificate dated the 21st of August 2014. Is that the certificate on the basis of which RS 5000 was being sold? I'm not as familiar with this certificate as I am the previous certificate. Right. No. Did you, during that period, become familiar with it?
No.
You didn't?
I don't think so.
Did you get a Did you have occasion to look at it at all?
I don't remember doing so.
When you were revising or engaging with the LABC in November 2014 about revising the LAB certificate, did you not have a chance to look at this one to see what it was that was already out there?
No, I didn't. I don't remember. I don't remember doing that.
Right, you don't remember doing that.
No.
Let's go back to Mr. Ewing's email then. CEL 401286. And he says in the second paragraph, LABC were contacted in connection with the wording used in earlier registration detailed certificates. There was concern that the certificates implied a global approval to the use of thermosets above 18 metres. This had never been the intention, but as a result of this, and also proposed amended national guidance, wording within certificates has been altered to clarify the acceptability of the use of thermoset insulating products when a classification report demonstrating compliance with BR 135 through testing to either BS 8414 Part 1 or BS 8414 Part 2 has been undertaken. Just pausing there. In fact, it's right, isn't it, that the impression that he is talking about is precisely what Celotex has been seeking to achieve through its registration and indeed in your amendments the previous November.
There was a lot of detail that I have missed in my time working on RS 5000. There's a lot of detail that I've missed, and the time I had to work on RS 5000, I don't want to make excuses again, but the time I had available to work on RS 5000 was 15-20% of my time. The majority of my time was spent working on. So there was so much I was not aware of, and I think I relied on others to help me with the detail at times.
When you received this statement from Mr. Ewing, did you not think to go back to the certificates then in circulation and see whether he was right or wrong in his concern that the certificates implied a global approval to the use of thermosets above 18 metres?
No, I didn't.
And when he says this had never been the intention, in fact, that's not true, is it? That had exactly been the intention of Celotex, to lead people reading the certificates to think that there was a global approval to the use of RS 5000 above 18 metres.
I think I inherited that intention.
Maybe, but that was the intention. You were there at the time.
Yes, yes.
And he's now saying, I think, well, let's look on. Actually, he goes on to say the question of the adequacy of the thermosetting materials was raised at a National Building Control Alliance meeting in December, and then goes on to say in the next paragraph, as such, I attach a revised certificate incorporating your requests, together with additional inserts clarifying the method taken to demonstrate compliance, i.e. approved document B 12.5 or option 2 on the attached BCA guide. Apologies that this has not been achieved sooner, but the proposed amendments to the guidance have taken much longer than anticipated. And then goes on to draw your attention to the notation on the certificate. And then at the end, he says, I trust that you will find this acceptable. The wording used is the same as that contained in the Kingspan K15 registered detail and would be included with any future thermoset product seeking RD status, that's registered detail, and intended to be used above 18 metres. If you could confirm this, I can post the new certificate onto the website for you. Now so he says that, and let's see what he attaches. It's CEL 403741, please. So this is what he's sending back to you now, mid-May 2015. And it's stamped draft on the first page and the rest of the pages throughout the document. And if we look at page 1, in the block of text to the left of the image, in the last sentence under description of product there, it says, it has been assessed by the BRE and complies with BR 135 for use in rain screen applications above 18 metres in height, subject to the board being fixed to a non-combustible substrate. See conditions of certificate for more information. So that's the same caveat, isn't it, that we saw before? And it also refers to the BRE test. Is it right that by this time, this is now May 2015, you knew that the BRE test had involved the magnesium oxide panels at the places identified to you by Mr. Hayes on the test report in the meeting that you'd had with him in late October 2014?
Yes.
So you knew that the BRE assessment was incomplete, to put it at its lowest, because it didn't refer to the 6 millimetres of magnesium oxide or the 8 millimetres of MADI.
Yes, I did know that.
Right. And therefore, is it right that just looking at that, anybody picking up this certificate and reading it would think that the BRE assessment could be taken at face value, whereas that was not in fact true?
No, yes.
Yeah. Now, let's look at the conditions referred to, because it is right to say that there is an asterisk and it says see conditions of certificate for more information. If we turn to those, please, if we go to the next page, we pick those up at the bottom of page 2, we can see the conditions that are referred to in the second half of that block of text, it says, for use on buildings. Do you see?
Yes.
It's a bit difficult to pick it up. For use on buildings with a floor more than 18 metres above ground level, Celotex RS5000 has been successfully tested to BS 8414 Part 2, 2005, and meets the criteria set out in Annex B of BR 135, 2013. The classification is only valid for the system specification and detailing outlined in Section 2 of the BRE Classification Report 295255, including the associated details found in Section 4 test reports as an alternative compliance to ADB. A full copy of the report should be made available by Celotex. The tested system comprised, and then there's the list, 2 layers of 10mm wallboard on Simcoe EFS, 100mm light steel frame system, 12mm magnesium oxide sheathing board with aluminium helping hand brackets, L and T rails, Lamitherm CWRHS horizontal intumescent and CWRSV vertical non-expanding fire brakes, 100mm Celotex RS5000 insulation board, and 12mm Marley Eternit Natura decorative rain screen board. No reference to the magnesium oxide, no reference to the 8mm of Marley Eternit. So you could see, couldn't you, when you got this, that the tested system described there was misleadingly incomplete.
Yes, as I look at it now, I accept that.
And
yes.
as you looked at it then?
As I looked at it then, as I knew about the details of the cavity fire barrier and the use of the 8mm and the 6mm board, but as I've said, it just didn't stick with me. It just didn't come with me.
Well, let's see how far we go. If you look at page 4 of this document, this draft document, we can see that the BRE classification report under supporting documentation, you can see that it's the last item in that list. BRE classification report in accordance with requirements of BR 135 2013, Ref 295255 issue 2. Now, this certificate was presenting that classification report as reliable support for the certificate, wasn't it?
Yes.
And you knew at the time that classification report, which is a separate document from the test report, was similarly materially misleading because it also made no reference to the 6mm magnesium oxide board or the 8mm of Marley Eternit.
Yes.
We can look at the classification report if you want, but take it from me that there is no reference in there.
No.
No. And you knew that at the time, I assume.
I knew what at the time? There was no reference to the 8mm?
Yes.
No, there is no reference, no.
And then if we go back to page 2, please. I read this to you a minute ago, but you'll see that in the last but one paragraph at the very end, and it is block text, but about 5 lines up from the very bottom of the page, it says, a full copy of the report should be made available by Celotex. You see that?
Yes.
Did you understand that to be a reference to the full test report?
I didn't even know that was... I hadn't even noticed that detail.
Right. Did you know that at the time, Celotex's policy was to refuse any requests for sight of the full BRE classification report?
Yes.
Do you know why the LABC was allowed to say that a full copy of the report should be made available when, in fact, Celotex would refuse when asked?
I think this detail got missed. It just got missed.
In fact, it gives a thoroughly misleading impression because it gives the impression that Celotex were prepared to disclose the report when, in fact, the opposite was the case.
Yes.
Were you aware of whether that was ever issued, this document, before Celotex renewed its registration in September 2015?
Sorry, say that again?
But what happened to this draft? Do you know?
I don't know. I honestly don't know.
And again, if you look at, stay on page 2, but scroll up to the top, you can see under scope of registration, it still says, or it says in there, Celotex has provided test reports undertaken by BRE and BBA to verify the product. Now, just pausing there, we looked at the draft wording that had gone to them on the 6th of November 2014, and I showed you the reference to the BBA in there, and we have your evidence about that. But it looks as if that reference has gone into this scope of registration. So
Yes.
it looks as if the LABC had simply taken what you'd told them at face value about the BBA verifying the product.
Yes.
Did you notice that
No, not
when you
really.
received this document from Mr. Ewing in mid-May?
The biggest... When we received this document in mid-May, the biggest thing for us is that an appropriate classification report and or supplementary report must evidence suitability of the proposed makeup. That was, as I said, I'm not sure I was able to deal with this certificate in its detail in the time up until those amendments were put through. I'm not sure I was qualified to deal with those. I'm not sure I could have, if I was, I'm not sure who I would have spoken to about my concerns other than someone, my peer. It's a very, it's excuse me, it's almost I feel quite embarrassed that this was not done properly, and I have not paid enough attention to the detail of this. I'm not sure I had the time, I'm not sure I had the qualification, I'm not sure I was capable, I'm not sure I was, without support. And I'm not, it's an important document, I understand that.
Did you actually read this document when it came to you from the LABC?
I don't think yes, I would have taken it, printed it, and shared it, and I would have discussed it. I doubt I would have looked at that on my own. I recognised that, by that, I was so overwhelmed with RS 5000 at that stage. I'm not entirely sure I would have printed it and shared it with someone. But as I said to you, whether I had paid attention to all of the detail would be, I can't be sure I did. I can't be sure I did. And that's a fault of mine.
Did you have a discussion with John Roper or Paul Evans about this draft?
I must have had a discussion with John Roper. It's not something I remember because John Roper is copied on all of the emails. So I may have had a discussion with him, but I genuinely can't remember. My go-to for technical support was something that I carried over from my time, which I learnt with everything, was with Jamie.
Right. Now let's move on to the next set of correspondence. In July 2015, CEL 403739, please. If we start on page 4, I'm afraid we're going to have to roll up this document a bit, but here we see an email from Sam Lee, who's now become Sam Lee Muller, on the 6th of July 2015 to John Roper and nobody else, which is about the registration renewal quotation for EW491 Celotex RS 5000. And it says the above registered details registration expires on the 21st of August, whereupon it will become due for renewal. And then if we go to page 3, we can see what happens. Sam Lee then gives John Roper a prod about a week later. Hi, John, this is a reminder that your LABC registration will be expiring next month on the 21st. Would you like to renew? And that's page 3. And at page 2, we see an email of the 22nd of July from Sam Lee to John Roper. This time it's copying you in. Hi, John, your LABC registration will expire on the 21st of August. Can you please confirm if you'd like to renew your registration with us and for how long? And then if we go to page 1, we can see your reply at the bottom of that email chain, on that page, bottom of that page, in that email chain. On the 5th of August, you go back to Sam Lee and you say, hi Sam, yes, we would like to renew LABC registered details for RS 5000 for 1 year to start. And let's just turn back to the top of page 2 to show you, kind regards, Debbie Berger. That's how it ends. And then if you go back to page 1, a little bit higher up, we can see Sam Lee's response. Hi Debbie, thanks for confirming. I will prepare the invoice now for you. I've attached the email David originally sent with the amended certificate for your reference. Please let me know if this is fine. You see that?
Yes.
Now that's well, let me ask you, was that a reference to David Ewing's email of the 12th of May 2015 that we saw earlier at CEL 401286?
I can't be sure.
Right. Do we take it that there had been no further correspondence about the amended certificate between the May of 2015 and late July, early August 2015? We haven't got any record of that.
No, I can't remember. I can't be sure.
Right. Now, there was a slight delay reissuing due to payment issues, I think. We don't need to go to that. But do you recall that in general terms?
What, with the delay?
Yes.
Because of payment? Not really, no.
Right. But in the event, do you recall that new certificates were issued in September 2015?
I would be relying on documents from that time to jog my memory.
Right. Let's go to CEL 50389 and look at a document to jog your memory. This is the September 2015 reissue of the LABC certificate, EW 491. And you can see, again, now we could spend time going through this, and let me just show this to you. Again, you see in the text on the left-hand side opposite the image, last sentence, it has been assessed by the BRE and complies with BR 135 for use in rain screen applications above 18 metres. In height, subject to the board being fixed to a non-combustible substrate, see conditions of the certificate for more information. And then if you go over the page, you see the scope of registration, and yet again we see in the first line, Celotex has provided test reports undertaken by BRE and BBA. So again, that error has found its way into this version, the final version. And then the conditions of certificate are identical to the draft sent by David Ewing on the 12th of May, other than the fact that that bold has not been used on a part of the text in the middle of that. At the time when you received this document, did you read it?
I can't be sure.
At the time when you received this document, did you not seek to check it against the draft that David Ewing had sent you in mid-May, to which Sam Lee specifically refers?
This is the first time I've seen. I honestly can't be sure.
What was the purpose, do you think, of you receiving these emails and these documents from LABC if you weren't going to read them and verify them?
Well, I understand what you're saying. Again, I would like to think that I opened the email, printed them off, read them, and showed them to someone else for confirmation or for clarification. But as I sit here today, I can't be sure I did that. I can't. It doesn't jump out in my mind as something that, at the time, perhaps there was some. I don't know. I don't have an answer, unfortunately.
Now you can see the foot of the conditions of certificate, to which the reader's eye is expressly drawn on the first page by reference to the asterisk, or by reference by the asterisk. There's exactly the same text as we saw in the draft, including exactly the same test in relation to the tested system. You see at the bottom of the conditions of certificate.
Yeah.
And again, the omission of any reference to the 6 millimetres
Yes.
of magnesium oxide and,
Yeah.
and the 8 millimetres of Marley. So can we take it that you, at least, and indeed nobody else at Celotex, had thought fit to correct the inaccuracies in that respect, at the very least,
No,
from the draft that had been sent in May?
that's
Why is
correct.
that?
I don't know. I can't recall. I'm sorry.
I mean, is it because actually Celotex was embarked on a scheme to mislead the LABC as best it could into the nature of the test which RS 5000 had passed?
I think by not being very open about those details from the start, yes, I think yes.
And where the LABC were making errors, knowingly and deliberately not correcting them, such as the reference to the BBA verification.
Yes, I think yes, there are people that knew about what was going on, myself included, although how much I understood of that is, but it's black and white, I did know about that, I was told it.
Now, let's go to your statement at page 45, paragraph 163. You say that, this is by reference to the email at DB41, includes a proposed set of words. And then you go on to say, from the documents I provided, I cannot be confident that this was the final version as sent to the LABC, but I believe I was involved in adapting the LABC wording from an earlier version. And then you say, I remember feeling uncomfortable with this text, and I said this to both Jamie Hayes and John Roper, pointing out that it was different to our literature. Did you point that out to them in a conversation or in an email or a document? Do you remember?
Probably a conversation, I would have thought.
Right. And you're describing here the text of that, those suggested revisions we looked at earlier. And do you know what they said to you in response? What Jamie Hayes or John Roper said to you in response when you raised the inaccuracies in the proposed set of words?
This is all. I don't remember talking to John Roper about it at all. Right. I really don't. I don't recall talking to John Roper, but I do remember. I remember speaking to Jamie, and I remember us saying that we were uncomfortable with this. But when the paragraphs in my statement that you can see are from an email that was dated sort of November 2014. So, yeah.
And you say you don't remember talking to John Roper. In your statement at paragraph 163, you say you did tell John Roper that you were uncomfortable with it. Is that not right?
I just, possibly, yes. I don't remember speaking to John Roper about it. As I sit here today, I can't recall that conversation.
You did when you wrote your statement. Mm. Can you account for that? Can you account for why it's in your statement, but now you can't recall it?
No.
Right. Did you yourself realise that the possible effect of not correcting the draft LABC certificate that you'd received in the May of 2015, or indeed the final version sent to you, as we've seen, in August 2015, was that anyone who read the LABC certificate, like a building control officer, would be misled into thinking that the system within which RS 5000 had been tested so as to produce the BS 8414 report was as it was stated, when in fact that wasn't true.
Had I considered that?
Yes. Did you realise that the possible effect of the LABC certificate remaining uncorrected in relation to the description of the test would be that anybody reading it, like a building control officer, would be misled as to the true nature of the test build-up?
I think as I sit here today now and I speak to you, then yes, I can see that.
But it didn't occur to you at the time that might be a consequence?
No, it didn't.
Was it not obvious?
It wasn't. It wasn't. I was completely overwhelmed with RS 5000 and working on RS 5000. The immense pressure there was from the sales team to, that was put on sort of product management, if you like, on how to use the products. The amount of time I had available, the RS 5000 needed its own resource. It needed its own product manager. If I'd had all the time, if all my time was only for RS 5000, then perhaps some of this detail would not have gone missed. Perhaps I would have become more aware of certain things, which I am now fully aware of, having, come this far down the track with the inquiry.
Let's look at the 2016 version, which is, I think, what you're referring to at paragraph 35 of your statement. It is that there are two documents here. There's, first of all, CEL 402061, which is a fact sheet. That's the document you refer to in your statement. That's right, isn't it? That's what you're exhibiting. And this is the fact sheet.
Okay.
And you can see the issue date is the 19th of August 2016. If you go down to the second pink box, you can see there's an issue date there.
Yes.
And again, the description on the left-hand side opposite the image, it's exactly the same as the draft May 15 and final version from 2015. Assessed by the BRE, complies with BR 135 for use in rain screen applications above 18 metres in height, subject to the board being fixed to a non-combustible substrate. See conditions of certificate for more information. And then if we go to the certificate itself, which I think is a separate document, that's at CEL 402062. And there again is the certificate. This time, if you look at the validity, at the bottom of the page, under validity, this certificate was first issued on the 21st of August 2014. And that was the first one I showed you, which you said you'd not seen, and is valid until 21st of August 2017. Issue date 19th of August 2016. Now, these are documents that I take it you would have seen when they were issued. Yes. And if we look at page 1, we can see that, again, it's identical to the 2015 draft and final versions. Yes?
Yes.
And if we go to page 2, we can see the conditions. Well, actually, we can see both scope of registration and conditions. On scope of registration, yet again, in the first line, Celotex has provided test reports undertaken by BRE and BBA to verify the product from both performance in fire and thermal properties. So yet again, that erroneous reference to the BBA has found its way now into this version, 2016. It's come from Celotex in the draft we saw you sent, went into the draft in May 2015, and the final version in 2015, and here it is again in August 2016. So this is a perpetuating or self-perpetuating error, isn't it?
It is.
And can you explain how that error was repeatedly made on the face of this certificate?
No, I don't know why this, other than perhaps this set of words, but as it evolved, it just went unchallenged. It went unchallenged, very much like lots of things went unchallenged. It just went unchallenged.
What else went unchallenged?
The test reports went unchallenged. You know, the marketing strategy, the proposition behind RS 5000, you know, that's gone unchallenged as well. And this is stuff, this is things I can, this is only now. Then it was like you couldn't see the wood for the trees. There was so much going on, and yeah.
But this isn't trees, this is wood, isn't it, actually? This is, I mean, the fact that there is a statement that the BBA have done test reports on RS 5000 isn't a minor detail which might get lost. That is an important representation which was completely false.
Yes.
Yeah. And underneath the conditions of certificates, tested system comprised, and it's the same question again, Ms. Berger, a detailed list there of what the tested system comprised, but no mention there of the 6 millimetres of magnesium oxide or the 8 millimetres of Mali.
Yes.
So again, the same misleading omissions. Yes.
Yes.
And so we've seen now that the LABC have put out, with Celotex's not just knowledge but encouragement, I would suggest, a thoroughly misleading certificate. you accept that?
With encouragement from Celotex?
Yes. Well, let's take it in stages. I think you do accept that the LAB certificate,
Yes.
both in 2015 and 16, was thoroughly misleading in the respects we've covered.
Yes.
And that I'm suggesting to you that the LABC did so with the knowledge and, as we've seen, the encouragement of Celotex.
Yes.
And that Celotex knew that it was misleading and deliberately never took steps to tell the LABC or ask the LABC to correct the misleading statements that we've identified.
Yes. Yes, I agree.
Can I then turn to a different topic, which is your involvement with the BRE in the latter part of 2014, so that's some months after the test. Now, do you remember that just after your discussion with Jamie Hayes, you had a meeting with Stephen Howard of the BRE in early November 2014?
Yes.
4th of November, to be precise.
Yes.
And I think Jonathan Room also attended.
He did.
Because he'd set up the meeting, hadn't he? Can we look at an email run? CEL 402131, please. This is Stephen Howard's email to you, and I want to look at the foot of page 1. It's there on the page. His email to you of the 17th of October 2014, copy to John Roper, classification report for the cladding. And he says, we had a conversation a while ago regarding the content of the classification reports and the level of technical detail they contained. We need to put a lot of info in, but you don't want your competitors to see it. We've come up with a way of doing it. Do you remember when that conversation was that he's referring to there?
No, I don't.
You don't remember what you discussed with him?
No, I don't.
Do you remember ever having a discussion with the BRE about the presence of the 6mm magnesium oxide
No,
panels?
I've never had a conversation with the BRE about the presence of the 6mm or the 8mm.
He says in that little, perhaps rather cryptic second paragraph, we have come up with a way of doing it. Did Mr. Howard explain to you at the meeting on the 4th of November 2014 what the way of doing it was?
So we had a conversation a while ago. My objective to speaking with Stephen Howard was to take our 32-page test report down and ask him how can we use this? How can RS 5000 be used with other cladding materials? Is there any way of taking the data from within this report to validate how other cladding materials might perform in the system?
Right, that was your objective in speaking to him.
Yes.
Did he explain to you what his way of doing it was that he's referred to here?
No,
Right.
no.
Did you ask him at the meeting?
No, I'm not even sure I understood that at the time.
Well, I understand why that might be. So did you ask him to clarify what he meant there?
It says we had a conversation a while ago regarding the content of the classification. I mean, no, I don't recall. I don't recall that. I really don't.
I mean, we can see your response to him. Or rather, I'm sorry, your response internally, which is, I'm going to set up a meeting at the top of the page. If we go to the top of page 1, we can see how you deal with that on the 20th of October. Hi, I'm going to set up a meeting with Steve Howard early next week to talk about how to detail our BRE RS 5000 fire report so as it gives us the relevant commercial info without the sensitive stuff. He's got some ideas that could help us. What was the sensitive stuff?
I think the sensitive stuff I would have referred to there would have been thermocouple details, the pictures, taking out, sort of trying to make it perhaps more easily understood. So the fire report, taking out all of the stuff which was complicated and technical and trying to find something which was, more useful.
Well, you didn't say without the complicated stuff or the technical stuff. You said the sensitive stuff. What was sensitive about the report that you wanted to remove?
I mean, this email, I didn't know about the stuff. To my knowledge, I did not know about the tweaks or the use of different materials on within the BR135 test at this stage. So when I look, I would have thought, when I read that and I've reviewed these documents, my idea there is to try and make the report something that can be used with other cladding systems.
Now, in your statement, you say, and this is, you don't need to go to it, it's paragraph 174 on page 47, you say that was a reference to areas which were thought to be commercially sensitive. That's how you've explained it in your statement. What were those? What did you think was commercially sensitive?
I think what I've said there it gives the relevant commercial info without the sensitive stuff. I think what I'm referring there is like the details of the test and how it can be used with other cladding materials.
I see. Now, did you ever ask Mr. Howard what he meant with his way of doing it that he'd referred to you in the email to which you were circulating?
Not to my knowledge, no.
Right. Now, there's a note of the meeting, I think, or after the meeting, CEL 401260. This is a note that you prepared after the meeting, incorporating comments, I think, from Mr. Room that he'd sent you. Is that right?
After the BRE meeting.
After the
We'd
BRE
been down
meeting
to see Mr. Howard,
on
yes.
the 4th of November, yes.
Yep.
Right. Let's just pick up the email. I'll just show it to you. It's CEL 401259. Just to be clear that Mr. Room had incorporated his own comments into this.
Yes.
And then, or rather, he'd sent you a message on the bottom of that page, and then at the top of that page, you then sent a short summary. Feel free to add or amend. If we go back to the note, CEL 401260, we can see under the first block of text, market, growing uncertainty, technical application, emotional. What was that about?
There was a lot of feeling around this is feedback I was getting from Mr. Howard, and he was telling me there was a lot of, there was quite a lot of strong feelings about the 8414, the K15 market, as I call it.
Strong feelings about the 8414 K15 market. Can you just elaborate? What do you mean? What did he tell you? Do you remember about strong feelings?
I think I can only go by what my notes here say, but these bullet points are an overall impression that I got, that people were getting a little bit. There were approvals were sensitive to insulation being about sales.
Well, I was going to ask you about that, but before I do, I just want to get a sense of what emotional means, and when you say there were strong feelings out there, what that really was about. What did people feel strongly about?
I think, it was just emotional. There was some concern, I think, about the market. There was concern that, products were being used where they shouldn't be.
Concern by the BRE or concern in the market?
I'm trying to think. I'm trying to remember what I meant by that. I think it was a combination. I think it could be just a combination of the two. I don't know. I honestly can't remember. This could be something that's coming from. This level of this report here is it's come from that meeting on the 4th of November. So I can say that this has come from that meeting.
Yes, I know. I'm just trying to work out what the source of this strong feelings is, whether it's the BRE expressing their own concerns about how they see the market, or concerns from the market that Mr. Howard is relaying to you. Just trying to work out what the source is.
I don't know. It's an impression. It's an impression I got from that meeting, and I can't pinpoint it into if it's come from the BRE or or what. I can't pinpoint it.
All right. Third bullet point down, you refer to BRE/BBA/NHBC approvals sensitive to insulation being about sales.
Yes.
What did that mean? What was that about?
It was BRE, BBA, NHBC approval sensitive to insulation being about sales. It was as if they were learning or becoming more aware that perhaps, things weren't as honest as they should be.
Right. Is that something that Mr. Howard said?
I would have thought so, because I wouldn't have known that.
Right. And underneath that, the last bullet point, it says burnt by K15 approvals in the past. What was that about?
Just that K15 had the Kingspan test and the BBA certificate was being used quite freely, really, outside of its tested system.
Well, burnt by K15 approvals in the past. Who had been burnt, as it were?
I think the NHBC, BBA.
Had been burnt by whose approvals? Their approvals?
Yes.
Right. And in what sense have they been burnt, did you understand? By giving approval to K15?
I think that perhaps K15 had been used incorrectly, and the bodies like NHBC had accepted it while it had been used incorrectly.
Right. Right. And was it your impression that these concerns that Mr. Howard was expressing had come from perhaps confusion caused by Kingspan's wide acceptance in the market?
I think confusion is a good word. But whether this is my impression or whether this is something that Mr. Howard has said, I don't know. I can't be sure.
Can we then just look on a bit to a different topic, scope of the use of RS 5000, and can we look at an email run, CEL 403366, please? And just at the bottom of page 1 for the timestamp, please, and then over to the top of page 2. This is an email sent by Nigel Waring within Celotex to you and John Roke, the 7th November, 12:57. And over the top of page 2, he says, Debbie, as discussed. You see that?
Yeah.
The RE solution is tested as per the attached document, etc. And then he goes on to say, if the BRE tested solution is per the attached document, and that Jonathan Room's email stating that many RS companies are reluctant to use the product of the test since ADB states the product used must be in accordance with the tested application, Then he goes on to say, if this is the case, this is not the smokescreen that many would make it out to be, accepted that blanket approvals for this are rare since the components differ widely. Therefore, it makes sense either to have a BRE apply certification and therefore acceptance to the test, provided that all components adhere to a certain Eurocode or fire performance themselves in the same way that steel frame construction or also the methods to secure and fasten these elements have to conform to EN numbers. Or we could not have the product accepted as part of the LPCB approval, etc. Now, when he says this is not the smokescreen that many make it out to be, what did you understand by that?
I don't know.
Can we then look at your reply, page 1, 2231, on the 10th of November 2014, and you say in your second paragraph, and this is copied to Paul Evans and John Roper, I should say, we have spoken to the BRE about writing us a field of application report demonstrating acceptance of materials with the same fire class as part of our tested system. But they are asking for more test data, not just from us, but from the industry as a whole, before they confidently give the okay to different types of cladding to be used, even though they have the same fire class. When did you have that conversation with the BRE, where they about writing a field of application report?
I must have had that with them at the meeting that we went to.
I see.
On the 4th.
I see. That's not reflected in the note that we've seen anywhere.
Sorry, which note?
The note of the meeting, the 4th of November 2014 meeting with Stephen Howard. That fact. It's not in the note.
Can I go back to the note, please?
Yes, you can. It's CEL 401260. And that's the first part of it. The second part of it is lower down. Do you see anything in the note there which could be a reference to you asking VRE for a field of application report?
That was the objective of the meeting, and this is the response we got. It wasn't, we didn't get an answer about.
Right, I follow. I see. Now, if we go to page 38 of your statement and look at paragraph 136, please. You say there that, bottom of the page, in the first sentence, after a few months as a product manager and working more closely with the sales team, I really felt the product needed to get back into development.
Yeah, I did.
And let's just pick that up. At CEL 401273 is an email on the 20th of January 2015, which I think you refer to in the second sentence of paragraph 136, as you can see there.
Yes.
CEL 401273 is that email. There it is. Hi, Richard, to summarise the conversation earlier. And then you can see that you say short term, and there's 3 bullet points. And under that you say, one of the challenges RS5000 has is its field of application. The market is changing as is more knowledgeable about the technical requirements of insulation in ventilated facades above 18 metres. The build-up tested, or its current field of application, doesn't represent what is commonly specified in the field and limits specification and sales opportunities. Is that why you felt the product needed to go back into development?
Oh, I think so, yes.
Right. Now, you say that the field of application was a challenge because the market was becoming more knowledgeable about technical requirements. Was it your view at the time that previously the product had been accepted more readily because of a lack of such knowledge?
No, I think it's something. I had very little commercial knowledge. I had very little commercial experience when I started work as a product manager. And I didn't honestly. I learned from the sales team. I mean, it was difficult because I was trying to engage with experts to try and understand how the product could be used, and I appreciate that we now know the test was not correct. I appreciate that, but at the time we were trying to engage with engineers, experts, to try and understand how the product could be used with different cladding materials, and that was kind of my focus. That was what I wanted to do. But on the other side, there was the sales team that wanted to use the product, and they were a force. They were the amount of inquiries I had from the sales team about, well, this is So I was learning a lot about what the market was saying from the people that I was visiting, such as the BRE, and also from the sales team. And it was, well,
Yes, I
it was
think
difficult.
what you're telling us is that actually you were observing a process whereby the market was going from the dark into the light. They were starting from a position of relative ignorance.
Yes.
And moving to a position of enlightenment.
Absolutely. The product was launched with a certain strategy, which I became more aware of
Right.
as I went along. But obviously the market had changed and they were looking for, I don't know why, I'm not entirely sure why the market changed, but it did.
And did you get the impression that when this product was originally launched, it was relying to some extent on the lack of knowledge about the above 18-metre requirements?
At the time, I didn't know that, but now 100%.
Right. Mr. Chairman, that's a convenient moment. I'm not quite at the end of my questions, as you could probably tell. But my estimate is that I am about 30 minutes, perhaps a little less than that, from the end.
Right.
I'm afraid of slightly
I
over.
don't know whether you were hoping to be released at this stage.
I would like to be. No, I would like to carry on and
Well,
finish it. But
I think everybody needs a break at this stage.
Okay.
And if Mr. Millett says he's got half an hour of questions, it's likely to be a bit more than that, at least in my experience. So we're going to break now. We'll all get some lunch, including you. We'll come back at 2:00 and resume then, please. And while you're out, please don't talk to anyone about your evidence or anything relating to it. All right? Good. Thank you very much.
thank you.
Right, we'd like to go to the usher. Right, 2:00 then, please. Thank you.